Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. So in this video what I'll be doing is I'll be cutting back the trees at the back of my garden. This is the first major works I've done in the garden really. As you can see, it's just kind of been left to grow quite wild. I've not touched much in the back garden, but the idea is with this back section I'd like to put in a shed and also create a bit more space for putting in more plants. And the plants here at the moment are just a little bit unsuitable for what my plans are. So one of the biggest ones that's taking up the most space is this lilac in the middle here. As you can see, it's quite a wide bush. It won't really grow much taller because it only really gets to a small tree at its full size, but it will get a little bit wider and it's just really taking up a huge amount of the garden. So what I'm going to be doing is cutting this one right back today, and in another video I'll be taking out the root system. The problem with the lilac is once you cut it down it sends up loads of suckers from its roots and it will keep trying to send up new plants all over the place. So I need to get as much of the root system out as possible. Otherwise I'm just going to be left with loads of these little lilac trees appearing everywhere. So that's probably going to be a bit of a tricky one to get the root system out. Tree wise, there's a couple of trees that need to be taken out. So we've got this cherry tree here. This is actually on the south side of the property, so it's going to shade a lot of the sun when it gets a bit bigger. Also, cherry trees get very large and they grow very fast, especially the wild ones. This is a wild cherry, it's just self-seeded itself. And as a wild cherry, this will easily grow up to 20 meters tall. It'll grow very fast. They can grow up to 1 meter a year if they're happy. This year it's grown about just over a foot. You can see in the previous year it grew from here to here, and that's over 1 meter of growth. So they can be really fast growers. So that needs to be taken out. It's just in the wrong place and it's too big a tree for this garden. And then the other trees, I don't really like taking out trees because I actually really like trees, and whenever I can I try and keep as many trees as possible, but these are just not really suitable for this garden and I want to be replacing them with better trees and more useful trees for me. So the cherry's coming out, unfortunately. Too big a tree in the wrong place, so that has to go. The lilac, it's just too big a shrub. I can put a lot more plants into that position and also a shed, so that needs to be removed. The pear tree, now pear trees, they just don't really do well in Scotland. You'll get fruit on them, but the fruit never really ripens up very well. The only time you can get good pears in Scotland is if you have a south-facing wall, somewhere really warm and sheltered with plenty of sunshine that traps the heat, and also if you choose a variety that's well suited to our climate. The summers here are just too cold for pears. The pears can handle cold winters, no problem, but it's the cool summers that it struggles with. So they'll grow quite well. They'll also set fruit quite well, but the fruit just never really becomes very tasty. It's always quite hard and inedible, so the pear has to come out completely. This one will be easier to pull out because it's only got a single trunk and this doesn't sucker as badly as the lilac here. The lilac's multi-stem, and multi-stem trees tend to be harder to pull out because there's less leverage points. But when it comes to trees I'll be definitely keeping the apple and the plum tree. I'll just walk further back because, to be honest, to get the best view you have to be further back for these. So you can see at the back here, this is the apple tree. The apple tree is quite an interesting one. It's a column one, so it's a vestigiate one. Basically it just grows straight up, doesn't have any side branches, but you can see it's already got a great crop of apples, so I'll definitely be keeping this. This is never going to get too wide, it's just going to go up tall and straight, so it is quite difficult to harvest the apples because they're so high up on the tree. But it means it's not going to take up too much space. It's also on the northwest side of the property, so it's not going to cause too much shading. It's just going to be a bit of shade in the afternoon and evening, so I'm not too worried about that one. It's a really nice apple as well, so definitely keeping that one. That just needs a bit of pruning. But then we've got the plum at the back, which has grown really quite big. That needs a lot of pruning. I want to keep it because it's going to have a nice crop of plums and it's right in the corner, so it's not going to cause too much shading and it's not going to really get in the way of anything else. But I need to really reduce the size, and I'll show you up close to what problem it's currently having. So first of all, this is the apple tree here. As you can see, it's got some great crops. It's got 3 main branches, but the problem is the main branch that's in the best position, which is the one at the back, that's going to be away from any of the sheds or anything. That one has got damage on it, so it's not going to be a long-term branch. I'll have to probably remove this in the future. You can see there, it's got a damaged section. Rot's probably going to set in here, weaken the wood, and that'll snap in a few years' time. So I'll probably have to move this. What I'm going to do is keep it for now, see how well it heals over, see if there's any chance of it surviving. But I suspect I'll have to get one of these lower down branches to come in and take over from it. These other two branches are healthy, but unfortunately this one is far too far to the side. I have tied it in, but I didn't have much rope, so I've just kind of tensioned it with tying some string and then wrapping the string around bamboo cane to get it really taut. That needs to be strengthened further. My idea is I'm going to pull that further left, because I'm going to have the shed. The shed needs to be quite close to the back fence, but enough space that I can still get around for maintenance. So what I need to do is have a little bit of space in front of the tree and then the shed, but that branch is coming right out in the way, so I'm going to try and pull that back. If I can't pull it back, I'll just have to cut that branch off, let this branch come up and take over from it, and also possibly take this off around about this level and let this one take over because of the damaged section on there. So I might lose quite a lot of this apple with the pruning. I'm not going to be cutting this today though, but because there's a lot of apples in there and I want to make the most of the crop, but I'm definitely going to have to do some pruning on this at a later date. So right in the corner here we have the plum tree. As you can see, it is quite a mature plum, but the problem it's got some kind of disease where it keeps growing these really congested branches here. So what happens is it grows lots and lots of growth in a small space. Branches, they keep growing lots of side branches. You get this really dense thicket of growth, and then it just kind of dies off. So it's putting a lot of energy into that. That section is also right over into the garden, so it's blocking a lot of the growing space. What I really want is this main trunk at the back to be kept, so I'm going to leave that main trunk. I don't mind a large tree, that can be kept. That's not really too much in the way. I don't mind if the taller branches overhang, because I'll probably have a shed in this section anyway, so if they overhang the shed roof, that's not a big problem. But I don't want any of these lower branches, so these are all going to have to go as well. And I'll definitely be keeping the plum though, and as you can see there is quite a few fruits on it already, so they are just about ripe, so I can harvest any of them if I need to prick them off. But the main thing I'm doing on this is removing all these low branches on the left. Now with plums, the hard pruning has to be done in summer because they get something called silver leaf. Same with anything in the pruners family, so cherries as well and damsons, they have to be pruned in summer, otherwise you can get a disease that sets in called silver leaf, and that's transmitted most easily in winter and autumn time. So I'll be pruning this in the summer. As I say, I'll be cutting off these main branches here and here, leaving just this big one at the back. What I will need to do is, before I take off the main branches, I'll need to take a lot of the weight off, otherwise this whole thing is going to crash down in an uncontrolled manner, so I'll need to carefully do a bit of pruning around there. Same when it comes to the pear tree, I can't just cut that in one go, I need to take off the weight first. So I'll set up my time-lapse camera now and let you guys see how I get on. So that's the majority of the cutting back now done. Now, although it only took just under an hour to cut back, the majority of the time will actually be processing all the waste. Now it's on the ground. I need to process it into a smaller size so I can take it away in my van. But that's the majority of the pruning done on the plants anyway. So the reason why I've left a lot of these as large stems is because I'll be taking out the root system. If you're taking out the root system, the last thing you want to do is remove any of the strong structural stems. The reason being is you need that leverage to help pull the root system out. So what you normally do is you dig around the base and then you use the leverage of the old tree trunk to then pull it out with. Same with the pear tree. I've left the main structure on that, so I can easily lever that out. In fact, it is already, you can see there's a bit of movement there. So that shouldn't be too hard to take out. The root system shouldn't be too bad on that. It's the lilac that's going to be the most difficult to pull out with the root system. I've also given plenty more space now to this apple tree. I'll need to keep an eye on this though, because it was quite sheltered before. Now its shelter's gone, there's a risk it could get damaged in wind, so I just need to keep an eye on it. There's a storm coming later this week. There's a lot of weight there on the apples as well, so I might need to stake this just to make sure it doesn't fall over, or possibly take off some of the top growth, although I'd rather keep that top growth for now because the apples are still ripening. As for the plum tree, there's a chance that a couple of those branches could be pulled off, but it was already not very sheltered anyway. It was already out on its own, so it's not going to make a big difference with the lower branches taken off. But as you can see, it's much more space in here now. It's cleared off the bottom stem. I might need to tidy up some of those cuts, but they should be clean enough. What I might also need to do is next spring is I'll need to do a bit more pruning on. So I don't want to prune too much now because I lose a lot of the plums. But there's a lot of long overhanging branches, I need to shorten a lot of these branches because if they have a really heavy crop of plums or if there's a storm, they could quite easily break off. So I just want to shorten the branches a little bit and also maybe encourage it to grow a little bit further this way. There's a little bit of shade on that side isn't the end of the world, as it'll be near a shed roof. But taking off those 2 lowest branches and a few of the other ones has made a real difference. You can see there's a big space in here now. So the idea will be that I'll have a shed starting round about here, kind of in line with the lilac there. Quite a narrow but long shed, and it'll go right back almost to the plum tree. The idea will be that there'll be a compost heap behind the plum tree, so I'll bring it over here and show you roughly the layout of the shed. So one corner will probably be just past that pear tree. The back wall will come right just past the apple, about a foot away from it, probably 20-30 centimeters. It'll then stop around about where the end of my loppers are, and so there'll be at least a metre or so, maybe a bit more than a metre away from the fence there. That'll give me space to put in 2 or 3 compost bays, and then I can process my own compost. And then the shed will come around, the corner will be somewhere around here, and then the front of the shed will be roughly kind of just probably a little bit in front where the lilac is, and then it'll finish up round about where the sunflower is. It'll be a bit further forward than this though. So it certainly feels a lot more open in the garden. There's a lot more light coming in as well, even though it's north facing. I think just because the reflection from the cloud is letting in a lot more light, which is good for the plants, more sunlight for my plants. But the idea of this garden is actually to have it quite sheltered, because there's a lot of houses nearby. I'd like a bit of privacy. Also, I'd like to have a sheltered kind of jungle themed garden. So the idea will be a big shed at the back there. And then I'm going to have some bamboo at the back on the right hand side, screening that side off. So it'll be the shed screening this side off, bamboo on the other side, and then I'll need to think about the other boundaries. At the moment there's a hedge here. I might thicken that up and let it grow a bit taller. And on the other side we don't have anything, so I might need to plant up some kind of tropicals on the right hand side of this garden. But the idea is it'll be quite a enclosed feeling garden, lots of big jungle style plants like bamboos and maybe a gunnera, make it look quite tropical. So it'll be quite an enclosed feeling. But this is the beginning of it. Big change. We've got these trees down now. Next video I'll be taking out the root systems, and I'll be starting to build the shed as well. As for the lawn, there's going to be a lot of work moving most of this lawn. I've not decided yet if I'm going to keep the lawn, but I think I'm probably going to get rid of the majority of it. And I'm also going to put in a patio in front of the conservatory, make the most of that spot, because it'll be quite a stunning position. But I'll need to think of what to do with these plants. They're quite nice, some of them, especially the peony here. The peony is quite good in spring. It's a pink one, looks quite nice. The hibiscus here though, it's not really suitable for Scotland. It doesn't really like our climate, it's just a little bit too cold. You can see it's actually flowering this year. We had a particularly warm summer and it's late in the season now, so it's starting to flower. There's loads of buds coming on it as well, so it does actually look like it'll do okay, but it's put on absolutely no growth. If I can show you there, it's only put on probably about 5 centimeters of growth all over. So it's a really slow growing plant. This is probably 20-30 years old. It's just never really liked this position. I've also been feeding it as well, but these have still been going yellow and sickly and falling off, so it's just the wrong plant for the wrong climate. So I'll be probably getting rid of that hibiscus and maybe giving away some of these crocosmia as well. Crocosmia look nice when they're in flower, but for most of the year you just got these big leafy kind of strap-like leaves. It looks a bit like grass. It doesn't really do much at all, and it looks messy in winter, but it's nice when it is in flower, so I'll maybe give these away. And as with the hibiscus as well, might transplant that if it's doable, but I probably won't keep it in this garden. But I think I might try and find a place for the peony here, because that does have a nice flower. So that's all for this video. I'm going to spend a few hours now processing all this material, probably bring it to my parents' garden because they've got a fire there, and we need all the chipping material as well, because we try and do a no dig kind of method in my parents' vegetable plot. So I'll chip all this material with their chipper. We can use it as mulch in the garden. I might also bring some of the material back to this garden as well if we don't need it all in my parents' garden. I could do with a bit of mulch, keep some of the weeds down in some of the areas, and also improve the soil quality, because the soil quality here is really bad. So that's all for this video. I'll give you guys an update later this year when I'm taking out the 2 root systems, and I might also need to do a little bit of tidying up on this old hedge here, which is looking a bit messy. And at some point I need to thin out some of the plum as well, because you can see there's a bit of old dead material in there. It needs a bit of thinning.